earlier today. So win-win for your world champion. Everything's coming up him. But for these two players here, as they look at their opening hands, their serious faces are on. You saw their intros. Andrea Mengucci, no shirt raise, showing off that Channel Fireball Italian version shirt. For Jean-Emmanuel, a quick handshake and down to business. These players, Alias, know what's on the line.
Oh, yes, indeed they do. So they will deliberate over these opening hands. Looks like a pretty good 6 cards there for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. What does he send back here?
Well, you take a look at the Grazer, the Golos, the Time Wipe, which can be nice in this matchup, and of course a little acceleration there with Securitas and a couple of lands. I don't think he can afford to send a land back here, especially because of the Arboreal Grazer, putting another one on the battlefield. So this is a pretty tough decision. It looks like he is leaning towards the Time Wipe.
So the board wipe going to the bottom of the library. Going to kick things off here. Andrea Mengucci, Forest Go. Simic Guildgate is the draw for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz.
Temple Garden here. There's your Grazer. No surprise there.
Getting the Simic Guildgate down onto the battlefield. Getting the ramp going. Wants to get to Golos as quick as he can. Start developing those zombies. Paradise Druid is the play for Andrea Mengucci.
You know, speaking with Mengucci earlier on in the day, and you saw probably this interview that he had with Becca where he mentioned that this is not his best matchup for sure. He really wanted to be good against all of the non-Golos decks, and he's done a beautiful job of that. We've seen him cut up everything there has been in front of him except for the Golos decks. He hasn't performed poorly against them, but it's not a home run like the matchup you would say that Javier has. So for Mengucci, he's going to have to be quick to the battlefield here. He really needs to land next turn for that Nissa and get to work with all of his Planeswalkers. So we'll see if he can do that here over the next couple of turns.
Yes, indeed. We're going to see a lot of back and forth between these two decks. They don't like to get things over with quickly, but they have the potential to do that with explosive plays later on in the game. Once Upon a Time available to Jean-Emmanuel Depraz. Circuitous Route is going to be the play. Let's go find those other colors that Golos needs to activate his abilities.
The black mana and the red mana there from the Guildgates, Orzhov, and Boros variety, which means, of course, as you mentioned, Golos is going to be ready to rock and roll when it does join the fray. But this was a key draw there. It's a 4th land and a 5th mana source there for Nissa, who shakes the world. We have seen this card be an ace in the Bant food mirrors and all different types of green and blue mirrors. In this matchup, it is totally fine. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it does allow Mengucci to do this, which is pressure the opponent.
Yeah. So Oko and Nissa teaming up, making 3 threes a pair, sending them in. Arboreal Grazer does its best to block, getting in for 3 points of damage. Blossoming Sands off the top for Jean-Emmanuel, can fire off that Golos and get some zombies rocking.
Now, a couple key cards sitting in Mengucci's hand right now. He's got the Deputy of Attentions, not an A+ in this matchup, but it does do a couple of things. One, it can take care of a Golos, get that out of the way for these 3/3 creatures, as Golos is a 3/5, causes some problems there. But also Questing Beast. When Jean-Emmanuel looks to stabilize the battlefield with all these zombies and stopping all of these Nissa attackers, Questing Beast can get through those last handful of less points of damage, pardon me. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition here for Mengucci.
Draws a Sparrow Oko Thief of Crowns off the top. He has Deputy of Detention to clear those zombies out if he wants to. May hold on to them for a later sweep of the battlefield. Questing Beast looking pretty good as well in that hand.
Now,
just so much available to him here, especially with these 2 Planeswalkers on the battlefield.
Again, it is important to remember if you're Jean-Emmanuel, you do have Once Upon a Time, but you have no sweeper. You put a Time Wipe on the bottom of your deck, but a sweeper won't solve all of your problems even if you do find one, because those Planeswalkers will be left over. So if you are Mengucci, you're probably feeling okay about this game. You know your opponent's working towards their end game of Field of the Deads, plural, only one right now, and of course activating Golos, which is something you probably have to stop.
So Deputy of Detention coming down and dealing with the first 2 zombies. Golos is safe for now, but there is a second Deputy to deal with the Tireless Pilgrim at a later stage, but Oko is going to get the job done, exchanging control of the Deputy of Detention and Golos. So now Andrea Mengucci is all of a sudden playing a Golos deck.
Yeah, I like this exchange here from Mengucci because now the 3/5 is on his side. Deputy of Detention, one thing it does not do well is block 3-power creatures. And of course, there's nothing under the Deputy for Jean-Emmanuel to get back if it were to die, since it took care of zombie tokens. So now Mengucci's got to figure out how else he wants to move forward on this turn, and if he can afford to play around some sort of sweeper style effect.
That was a really sweet play there from Mengucci. Nissa doing Nissa things, bringing lands to life, and we're going to see some swings in here from our 3/3 creatures. Jean-Emmanuel firing off Once Upon a Time, wants to find a board wipe, and does so in the Realm Cloak Giant. That's going to be a bit of a yikes for Mengucci.
So that is a huge find there for Jean-Emmanuel, but do keep in mind that Mengucci is still very much in this game. Now, he does have the ability to play some things post-combat, of course. The island, the plains, the forest will tap for double green, and of course he does have a Paradise Druid as well, so he can deploy another Oko if he'd like to and have a large loyalty planeswalker on the battlefield. So this one's not over just yet. Realm Cloak Giant will certainly buy Jean-Emmanuel some time.
Yeah.
The question is how much?
How much indeed? We'll probably see Oko just make a food token here and swing in for 6 points of damage next turn with Nissa and the food. This Realm Cloak Giant will cast off the battlefield, clearing it completely. But Jean-Emmanuel's life total is getting very, very close to 0.
And again, that's where that Questing Beast in hand certainly does play a role in things. Now, you're going to see Cast Off be played, and I think a big hand might be on the way here in just a moment. Jean-Emmanuel is actually going to tap the Mana Fort instead of using the Auto Tapper because he wants to set something up. But again, he's got to try to beat these Planeswalkers and that Questing Beast that Mengucci has in hand. Though, it is worth noting, Alias, Mengucci only down to 2 lands now.
Oof. That is quite a thing to see, isn't it? Cool, we have these Planeswalkers down. They're all on massive amounts of loyalty. Nissa is close to ultimating, if that even becomes a factor in this game. Teferi, Time Raveler off the top of the library. Unable to cast it. We'll get a zombie on the battlefield. We're on 8. Not dead yet.
No, and the good news here for Mengucci is that both those lands are forest. So he did some nice targeting with his Nissa to leave a couple of forests behind so that he would be able to cast Questing Beast. Of course, Temple Garden is a forest, even though it is non-basic, and then the basic forest. Well, that one's pretty obvious there with Nissa. So if he'd like to go towards Questing Beast this turn, he certainly can. He still has Oko to use as well. I don't want to ignore that Nissa. The mana generation is great, but also the ability to make a 3/3 attacker pretty darn good too.
So Andrea just deciding how he wants to sequence things. First things first, let's get the Questing Beast on the battlefield. Let's bring this forest to life. Let's get some swings in here with all of our creatures. Oko getting to work on that food token, turning it into an elk perhaps as well to swing in for 7 points of damage.
And there is the food token turning into an elk, and it looks like everybody's coming on in.
Oof. What do we need off the top here? I don't think a Fabled Passage is going to do it for Jean-Emmanuel.
Well, this is a little bit interesting here. So we take a look at what Jean-Emmanuel can do this turn. He can hardcast a Realm Cloak Giant. That can get in front of the Questing Beast. There's a Fabled Passage that can bring not 1 but 2 zombies, and then can maybe deploy the Teferi as well. I think he's got enough mana to do all of this, and the Teferi could bounce that food token. So he may be able to play on past this turn. Again, can't afford to take a single point of damage for pretty obvious reasons at this stage of things. So he's going to take his time and figure it out. He's got a timeout in the bank as well, so he's got a little bit of time to work with.
So Fabled Passage, as you mentioned, will make 2 zombies due to its ability to sacrifice and go and find another basic land in the library. The island will come into play and create that second zombie. Teferi, Time Raveler on the battlefield, going to bounce one of the tokens. Going to bounce that food token, so it's out of the equation entirely. What does he draw off the top?
Yeah, I like leading here as well with the Teferi. The Teferi, of course, can bounce something and draw a card. The food token does make a lot of sense. I think you can make arguments for a lot of different things here, however. For example, if you do bounce the Questing Beast, and that means that that 3/3 may not be attacking that 3/3 forest because it might have to tap for mana, so we'll have to see here on exactly what we do want to target. Jean-Emmanuel looks like he's going to go with the Questing Beast here as opposed to the food token. So, Agent of Treachery is one hell of a top deck for him. Oh boy!
Smokes,
I'll be taking this.
Nissa.
And an ultimate, oh my goodness.
Oh, what a turn. Nissa, who shakes the world, ultimating for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, going and finding all the forests in the library. They are now all indestructible. That's a bunch of zombies. Whoa! Holy smokes. I may have sworn there it was that good. Wow. So, now, only 2 lands available plus the 3/3 forest for Mengucci. He can Deputy of Detention all of the zombies. Does he still have a win here?
So let's see. He can attack here. You can do a little exchange. Yes, he can.
He does.
He can win. He's okay. He's okay.
Wow.
He found the line. He wins game 1.
Look at his face. You know how insane that turn was. Absolutely incredible stuff from both players. I'm going to need a drink after this.
Well, he found the line to win the game. Agent of Treachery taking that Nissa and ultimating, making all of those zombies, but that beautiful, beautiful deputy in the holster to take care of all of those zombies. Mengucci still able to find the winning line. Oh, the Mythic Invitational champion.
Goodness.
He is a very, very skilled Magic player.
Oh, yes, indeed, he is. He is not winning by accident, friends. Absolutely incredible stuff from both players there. The games this weekend have just been incredible, and this is going to be one of the top ones for sure.
Again, Mengucci does not feel as though he's favored in this matchup. He thinks the matchup is very, very close, and of course he tested against it quite a bit leading into the tournament, as did all 68 players here in Long Beach. Able to eke out a win there. So now he'll have to get a little bit creative in the sideboarding here. But it's important to note, he's up a game, and that's a very big deal for Game 3 if we get to it. So for Mengucci, he's feeling pretty good about things. Jean-Emmanuel looking to come back.
Oh, look at that opening hand. Not too shabby. Maybe one extra land in there he wouldn't like to see, but Growth Spiral, Hydroid Crisis. That's a pretty good start there for Depraz. Mengucci is up a game. He is one game win away from joining Javier Dominguez at the World Championship. Never mind the finals. World Championship spot guaranteed. Let's see if he can do it. Look at his face. He knows what's on the line. Ooh. Shake it out. Okay. He's agonizing over this hand.
Well, Jean-Emmanuel is going to keep his. Hopefully we get the opportunity to take a look at Mengu's. All right, he's going to keep this hand. This is not the best one I've ever seen. A couple copies of Gilded Goose. He does have a breeding pool, which gives him both green and blue mana.
What you talking about?
It's definitely in play. And he picked up a copy of Disdainful Stroke as well. So this hand is starting to shape up to be pretty good, actually.
Oh, yes, indeed. We might see a turn 3 Nissa. Turn 2 Oko, you are nothing compared to turn 3 Nissa. So let's see if we do get that going. Growth Spiral is available to Depraz. He'll fire that off on the end step, get some extra lands down the battlefield. No, he's going to fire it off right now into another Growth Spiral. That's pretty darn good. So ramp going for Jean-Emmanuel. Ooh, another Disdainful Stroke off the top there for Mengu. Let's hope it finds good targets.
So these counter spells are interesting here because I like not deploying the Goose here because if he deploys the Goose and he needs to play a Disdainful Stroke or Negate, he's got to sacrifice a food token to do so. So he's just going to leave his mana up and slow play this a little bit. We're not going to see Nissa for a little while this game. If you are Mengucci, you are looking to draw lands, as Jean-Emmanuel drew, oddly enough, maybe the worst draw in his deck in a weird way in Growth Spiral because he elected to put Boros Guildgate down last turn as opposed to a different land, so he can't actually Growth Spiral twice now, unfortunately for him.
We'll be able to fire off the one to get the breeding pool down.
That's a big draw. That Temple Garden is a really big draw because now there's another Gilded Goose down. Now he's got the counter spells available, and if Jean-Emmanuel does not acquiesce, he can just continue to make a food token like he did at the end of Jean-Emmanuel's last turn.
Growth Spiral firing off. Does he want to negate this? Not yet.
No,
that's a Golos.
This one's not negatable insofar as it's just not a high enough impact card to counter.
So Jean-Emmanuel knows very well that there are Disdainful Strokes to look out for. Golos was the pickup of the Growth Spiral. Beanstalk Giant in as well, so he can go Fertile Footsteps, find another land, Growth Spiral, get more land out possibly. And just try and play around these Disdainful Strokes as best as he can.
Yeah, I like this. So this is interesting. I'm kind of into this negate here. And the reason for that is because Mengucci knows that he's got to start to convert his resources a little bit. He's not going to, you don't get to go to the next game with these cards in his hand. So he says, you know, I'm going to counter that one. Fortunately for him, he draws a land, and this is a great time to deploy Nissa. It is a little bit scary in case your opponent has counter magic. So he may wait.
Oh, nice. Field of the Dead in play now. Another Field of the Dead. Doesn't make zombies just yet, though. Circuitous Root will likely meet a Disdainful Stroke, as will Golos the Tireless Pilgrim.
6 different land types right now for Jean-Emmanuel with some heavy hitters in his hand in Golos, Securitas, and of course Hydroid Crisis. So he's got to figure out exactly where he wants to lead. And of course Jean-Emmanuel is a very smart and very capable player, so he knows that if Mengucci's not doing anything, he clearly has reactive permission. So he has to figure out which spell he wants to play into a counterspell.
Circuitous Root is the pick. Disdainful Stroke flung out straight away. Field of the Dead into play. No zombies just yet, but any land after this is going to start generating it, provided it is unique.
Now Mengucci picks up a copy of Questing Beast.
Hello.
He's more than happy to deploy that. Still has Disdainful Stroke at the ready. This is the kind of tempo-oriented game he wants to play, which is tap out for a big spell while still having enough mana available to counter a spell.
All right, Aether Gust will keep Jean-Emmanuel alive just a little longer, but he knows full well that those cheeky geese are up to no good. Oh, wow. What do you play here? Maybe just run out the Hydro Crisis, refill your hand, try and find some more threats?
Yeah, this one's a little bit interesting. The ability to play Golos right now will find you a land if it does resolve. And if this does resolve, of course, that means that Field of the Deads will trigger as well. But Field of the Dead triggering in the face of Questing Beast is ultimately not all that important. Now, I'm curious to see if Mengucci does want to counter this spell here with this last Disdainful Stroke.
Thinking about it and says, yes, I do not want Golos on the battlefield, so into the bin you go. Oh, man. This is getting very, very scary here for Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, Andrea Mengucci. Just finding all the things he needs.
It looks like Mengucci's thinking about playing Nissa this time.
There we go. Aether Gust is going to send it back to the library. Mengucci deciding to put it on top. Questing Beast swinging in for 4 points of damage. Down to 12 goes Jean-Emmanuel. Veil of Summer.
The big question here is Mengucci's clock fast enough? Because we're going to see a large Hydroid Crisis come down here in just a moment. And of course, with that in mind, we're also going to see Jean-Emmanuel draw a couple of cards and gain some life. He's going to leave a Veil of Summer up. A bit of a tell here because he's actually tapping for it himself as opposed to letting the auto tapper do it, which means he wants to leave up that instant. So he'll draw a couple of cards, picked up a Blossoming Sands. And that's land number 7 as far as Field of the Dead is concerned.
Now, importantly, this Hydro Crisis is a 4/4, so able to block that Questing Beast and deal with it permanently.
Yes.
Nissa Who Shakes the World back in action for Mengucci. Oh man, this game is super close.
Planeswalker resolving, of course, the 3/3 lands that Nissa makes are not good at attacking through a 4/4 Hydroid Crisis. So how Mengucci wants to use his Planeswalker is going to be a little bit interesting here. Also has to keep in mind, too, that there's a real chance that it does just die next turn in combination of Hydroid Crisis and some zombies attacking it.
So the Breeding Pool becomes a 3/3 just in with the Questing Beast, offering the trade to Jean-Emmanuel. He's going to take the 4 from it. Possibly needing this Hydroid. Oh, Agents of Treachery again.
It was good last game, but not good enough. I think it may be good enough this time around. Nissa is a nice little target. Questing Beast is 2. Jean-Emmanuel's got some things to think about. And don't forget, he's also got a land to deploy there in Field of the Dead. This should be a really, really nice turn.
Oh, yes, indeed. Agents of Treachery, you sneaky fella. Shows up just when you need him, doesn't he? So, Agents of Treachery on the battlefield, eyeing out a permanent of Mengucci's. Gotta think it's gonna be... Oh man, Questing Beast or Nissa, so many good options.
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 very, very, very high leverage options here in Questing Beast and Nissa. It looks like we're gonna go with the 4/4 attacker, and looks like we're gonna start checking that Nissa. Let's see if we can get that off the battlefield. This is the kind of turn that Jean-Emmanuel needed. Not only does he take Mengucci's best creature, but he can for sure get this Nissa off the battlefield, it looks like. So a beautiful turn here for Jean-Emmanuel.
Absolutely right. So Nissa will be dealt with. Questing Beast will get in for 4 points of damage and 4 to Nissa as well due to his text. But the Breeding Pool is blocking it, so scratch that.
Yeah, do remember that Breeding Pool can block the Questing Beast here, so its text of actually dealing damage to a Planeswalker may not occur this turn, but it looks like Mengucci's going to let it through, and that means that the Nissa is going to be headed to the graveyard. So Mengucci's in a world of trouble, and things are not getting any easier with 3 zombies on the way.
Veil of Summer is still at Jean-Emmanuel Depraz's disposal, and Mengucci's got one too. I bet he wishes that was a turn earlier.
Yeah, worst possible draw step there. 1 turn too late there for old Mengu. Game 3 we go.
All right. An absolute cracker of a match between these 2 players, Andrea Mengucci, Jean-Emmanuel Depraz, both fighting for a spot in the finals against Javier Dominguez, who is eagerly waiting to see who his opponent is going to be.
We are 1 game away, as you mentioned, Alias, from the finals here in Long Beach. Mengucci will be on the play. Jean-Emmanuel will be on the draw. Jean-Emmanuel is going to change a few things, given that he is on the draw here, as play draw does bring different gameplay. So this will be a little bit interesting here. Mengucci's got to be thrilled that he's on the play. He's not going to show it, of course, but for Game 3, with a World's invite and playing his good friend and testing partner in the finals of this Mythic Championship, you couldn't draw it up any better than this if you're Mengucci. If you're Jean-Emmanuel, You were one step away from qualifying for Worlds last year. You'd hate to see that happen again here this year.
Dare I say it, if Mengucci progresses, he's going to get a fairy tale ending.
Yes.
Taking a look at the opening hands, pretty okay. That's all right. Blossoming Sands into Hallowed Fountain gets Growth Spiral out on turn 2. But Gilded Goose is on the battlefield for Mengucci. First and foremost, generating that food token. We've got 2 Paradise Druids and Oko and Nissa who shakes the world. So all his key cards right there and ready to get going.
Mengu's draw step was so interesting too because his play was so straightforward of Paradise Druid and maybe playing Gilded Goose as well. Now that he's drawn one of the best cards in his deck in Oko, Thief of Crowns, it looked like he might be going that direction instead, which takes away the potential of a turn 3 Nissus. So here is Oko, Thief of Crowns, a format defining card, will generate a food token.
Agent of Treachery showing up early to work this time. He may get to steal something yet, but that is very many turns away. Well, maybe not, considering how these decks like to ramp.
Oh, they don't take much time to get 7 mana onto the battlefield. Growth Spiral is the card in hand here for Jean-Emmanuel, so I wouldn't be surprised to see an untapped Hallowed Fountain and representing both Aether Gust and Growth Spiral here on Mengucci's turn.
Passes the turn back. Hydroid Krasis is the draw. Aether Gust getting in, sending Oko back
So
to Andrea Mengucci's hand before he can activate it.
So the timing here is interesting. This is in the draw step after the draw. Mengucci ends up being forced to draw Oko next turn, and another Aether Gust is timely as well because this could really mess up Mengucci's draw steps now.
Oh, yes, indeed. This is rather annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, Jean-Emmanuel is very cognizant that Mengucci did not play a land last turn. He just played a Paradise Druid and passed the turn back. So how he uses this copy of Aether Gust will be a little bit interesting. You also note that Mengucci put that Oko on the bottom, so Deputy Detention is the draw step.
It isn't that. No, Aether Gust is available to Jean-Emmanuel, but letting this Paradise Druid hit the battlefield, Gilded Goose is still available to play for Mengucci if he so chooses. Jean-Emmanuel's doing a very good job of just stalling Mengucci, stopping him from getting to all these big hitters like Nissa.
Stalling is the perfect word to use. He just wants to stall, 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 and then all of a sudden there's a Golos, there's a Field of the Dead, there's an Agent of Treachery, and it looks a lot like game number 2.
Growth Spiral drawing another plains. Field of the Dead will enter the battlefield, drawing some more lands, so we will see zombies very, very soon.
I was curious to see if Jean-Emmanuel did want to try to deploy Golos that turn, but I like the patience here. Not in a rush, sitting at 19. Mengucci with nothing very threatening on the battlefield. Oh, man, this Gust is going to be really, really good, and now we're going to see Golos probably next turn as well.
You'll probably find he wants to deploy Golos with Veil of Summer up so that it doesn't, you know, doesn't get deputied straight away.
Yeah, it doesn't get deputy, doesn't get countered, nothing bad happens. So much patience because he's at 19 life. So now the deputy is going to come down. It'll probably find land type number 7 for Field of the Dead, and our Bant Golos player is off to the races.
Just taking a look at the lands. What does he want to get? Temple of Malady. Wants to get another Scry, perhaps. See what's on top of the library. Generates a zombie. In the meantime, another Golos, Tyler's Pilgrim. This one is relatively safe for now.
Yeah,
So does he keep it on top or send it to the bottom?
He's not sure if he wants to keep this on top or send it to the bottom with the scry here of Temple of Malady. It's an interesting decision to be sure here for Jean-Emmanuel, but right now he knows he is in the lead in this game. The advantage bar is certainly with him, so he's going to leave that powerful 3-5 on top of the library. Mengucci's drawing a copy of Nissa, which Jean-Emmanuel knows, and I think Jean-Emmanuel is thinking, I can definitely beat this card, so I'm not too scared about this at all.
Oh no, because we know that there's an Agent of Treachery ready to snap up that powerful 5-mana Planeswalker. Drawing a spare copy of Golos, Tyler's Pilgrim. Will we see a Golos activation? Will we see Agents of Treachery? So many options.
Now, do remember that because these players have access to each other's deck list and we're so deep into this tournament, Jean-Emmanuel has been kind of playing around counter magic a little bit, and we saw a ton of it in game number 2. So there's no rush to get to Agent of Treachery right now. He'd like to do it with Veil of Summer to defend it, so we might see something different this turn, like a Hydroid Krasis.
You called it. Will he manually tap to leave up a green? All right, Auto Tapper's behaving. He's just making sure.
Yeah, in an instance like this, I'm not trusting any machinery whatsoever. I'll be doing this myself, TYVM, so here we go.
Hydroid Krasis for 4. Gonna draw him 2 cards, gain him 2 life. More lands off the top. You don't hate to see lands as the Bant Golos deck.
No,
as
when
it
you get
keeps
to this
generating
stage,
zombies.
lands are good, spells are good. So all your draw steps are pretty good. And now you've got a 4/4 Hydrate Crisis on the battlefield. That's better than anything Mengucci can do.
Oh, tense times here indeed. Gilded Goose will make another food token on the end step. Draw, finds a Temple Garden. Deputy of Detention is going to whiff for the most part.
Well, the scariest thing on the battlefield right now for Jean-Emmanuel, pardon me, is Golos. You do want to take care of that card if you can because it is threatening to activate, and we know how powerful Golos activation can be. Mengu is very far behind this game, but if there's one card that can catch him up, it is an active Nissa, so he's got to try to take advantage of his Planeswalker as best he can. This turn's going to be, I think, a lengthy one for Mengu as he tries to figure out how he can get back into this game.
You just see he's counting, he's checking, making sure how many copies of this card have I seen from my opponent. Tapping the land, we're going to animate that forest, get some extra green out of it. Hydroid Crisis, possibly the play for Mengucci. Yeah, let's dump all that mana. Let's get a big flying fishy. I see your Hydroid Crisis, and I raise you mine.
Yeah, he wants to make a larger one here that can ideally defend his Nissa. And what he doesn't know is that there is an Agent of Treachery on the other side.
Oh, that's rude.
You see Mengucci picked up a counterspell there in Disdainful Stroke. He'd love for that to be effective, but I also think he knows that Jean-Emmanuel does have Veil of Summer in hand. With the way that he's been tapping his mana and leaving a green available, it's as transparent as can be, and sometimes when things are that transparent, it's still effective because there's nothing you can do.
Oh, yes, indeed. Could be trying to debate him, but I don't know if Jean-Emmanuel has that in him. Agent of Treachery is going to be deployed and go after.
Yeah, you see Mingo. I think he's resigned to his fate. He knows that he has to Disdainful Stroke this. He has to hope, and I mean hope, that there's no Veil of Summer, but we know there is.
We know there is. So he knows. You can see the disappointment in his face that didn't resolve. So Agent of Treachery will enter the battlefield. It will take something of Andrea Mengucci's. Everything is hexproof from blue and black. Hydroid Crisis is going to swing in, deal with that Nissa, and the zombies are going to get rockin' too.
This has got to be feeling really, really good here for Jean-Emmanuel. Again, he came up just short of Worlds last year. Obviously disappointing to be the first person out of the World Championships, the one person on the outside looking in. He might be joining Javier Dominguez, not only in the finals, but the World Championships a little bit later on. This is a heck of a comeback, being down a game in a game that he thought he may have stolen with that Agent of Treachery top deck. But that Agent has been good all 3 games, Alias.
It has. And like I said, he showed up for work early, so he got the job done. Deputy of Detention will get both Hydroid Crises. They're out of the sky. And if the Deputy dies, both of those creatures will die because they are 0/0. So it's a great target, much better than those zombies. Veil of Summer, again, just one turn too late. Could have protected the jellyfish. But we may see a Golos activation here, Cedric.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing right now for Mengucci is you need your opponent to actually start missing a little bit now, too. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, if he's going to activate Golos, I need it to be a pretty bad activation, or dare I say activations, plural, because we might get more than one in this particular game.
Deciding, does he want to fire off that second Golos? Go find another Field of the Dead and just swarm the board with a bunch of zombies. Overwhelm Mengucci that way.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to see a second Golos. He'll keep one of them, of course, given the legendary rule. And now he'll search his deck for almost certainly a Field of the Dead.
There we go. Zombies aplenty for Jean-Emmanuel, the lone Golos survivor. Can fire off that Growth Spiral too, see what else he finds. Keep up the Veil of Summer.
Unfortunately for Mengucci, his Hydroid Crisis did not really yield all that much, and if you're Jean-Emmanuel, you don't need to get terribly aggressive this game. Pardon me. Things are certainly going your way, and the longer we go, the better it gets, because of course you have a Golos and your opponent does not.
So Mengucci creating a food token and eating it on the end step. Just buffing up his life total a little bit. Breeding Pool off the top. That's not what you want to see. He needs something else to get him back into this game that Jean-Emmanuel Depraz is just taking over.
Yeah, and unfortunately right now for Mengucci, there's a lot of bad draw steps in his deck. Stuff like Counter Magic is not particularly good. This Mana Acceleration in Gilded Goose and, of course, Paradise Druid, much better in the early stages of the game as opposed to the late ones. He doesn't want to get into a late game battle against this deck. No one wants to get into a late game battle against Bant Golos because, as you see with that draw step, that's what happens.
Hydroid Crisis off the top. That is an excellent draw for Jean-Emmanuel. So let's get tapping. Doesn't trust the auto tapper. I wouldn't either, because we want to keep up that Veil of Summer, protect our cards. Ooh, good game. You think he knows what's coming. Sees the manual taps. There's a massive Hydroid Crisis, an 8-8 in the air, and Andrea Mengucci scoops it up. Jean-Emmanuel Depraz is going on to the World Championship